We're good to go. I got you, Stan. You're muted. You're muted.
Calling the meeting to order, July the 16th, 2020, 5:32 p.m. Our first order of business this evening is to elect or appoint a new governing board member. The nominee for the 2020-21 year is Regina Doppel. Regina has been a resident of Hudson for about the last year and a half, originally from Los Angeles, California. She has a niece that lives with her who attends Hudson High School. She'll be an incoming junior this year. Regina is a training specialist for 3M. She's been in the training industry for over 17 years, has facilitated both classroom and virtual trainings, and also designed classroom, virtual, and e-learning. I think that Regina certainly has the background to help us out here. She is married with 4 grown children, 3 grandchildren, all of whom live still in California. And she is going to be very, very brave here and take on either kayaking or paddleboarding as a hobby this summer. So Regina Doppel is our nominee. I will make the motion that we accept Regina as the newest member of our governing board. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Any questions?
She sounds overqualified.
my sentiments exactly.
How did we find her? How did is she someone who has applied before, or did she just come out of the woodwork?
She had showed interest in joining our board when we first started putting things together here, back when we were learning how to walk. And I reached out to her once we decided to increase the number on our board, and she expressed continued interest. And I mean, with her background, I can certainly see why. So, any other questions? All those in favor of electing Regina to our governing board, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Regina is our newest member. If we could pause now just for a second, Sarah's going to send Regina an email so that she can pop in on our Zoom meeting here as well.
How do you spell Regina's last name?
She will be a function, excuse me?
How do you spell Regina's last name for the minutes?
Doeppel.
Thank you.
That the rest of the board knows, Shelley's father-in-law passed away over the weekend, and she is en route to southeastern Wisconsin here this afternoon for a memorial service tomorrow. So she is going to try to come in via, just via the phone, but knowing what the cell service is down the I-94 corridor, that may be hit or miss for her. So.
Looks like she made it.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
That was a quick turnaround time.
Our onboarding is outstanding.
Yes,
There's no training, but we can include you really fast.
there you go.
We'll get to that.
Our next order of business after welcoming Regina onto the board is a review of the 2021 Hudson Virtual Charter School budget. Sarah?
Yes, and we reviewed that at our last work session, which was June 30th. And I did reattach that to our agenda. So if you go to the meeting invitation and click on the agenda, I've got the budget linked under 2B. And I think if everyone just wants to look that over again tonight, because I know Pete wasn't at the last meeting, and then of course we have Regina joining us. And then if there are questions or items that you would like more clarification or discussion on, then we'd be open to that, right?
With all of the uncertainties that we have in life in general here, currently, this budget is based on that estimate of 10 students. No one knows as to how many students we may or may not have here at this point. But, so the numbers are, well, I guess best guess at this point.
Is the, I mean, the items are listed per student. Let's say we had 100 students. Does our budget grow based on the student, or is it a fixed pool that is divided currently?
Yeah, so I'll address that. The budget would grow. I mean, essentially, we look at the budget as a plan as opposed to a pool of dollars. Because as we would bring in more students, the dollars would follow, and then we would have access to those funds accordingly.
Okay, that makes sense. That's what I figured, but clarify.
Any other questions or comments on the budget?
Maybe as a point of clarification for a couple pieces that would impact the governing board the most. So that would probably be the first item, the marketing expenses, and then the mileage and meals. That's for governing board, potential conferences or workshops or things that we might wish to attend.
I know we were talking about marketing last time and we weren't sure what that would, like if there was a baseline. Have we done anything there to even understand what we would want to do? I know we had a brief conversation last time, but.
You want to talk about Tracy?
Yeah, so I think Stan and Dave and I were planning on having Tracy at our next work session, and Tracy is our, what is her title, Dave?
Assistant Director of Communications.
Okay, so we were going to have her come in and talk a little bit about potential expenses and venues and ways that we could advertise and market. So that would be forthcoming. We didn't really think that today would have been the best time for her to do like a presentation, and so I figured we'd save that.
there is, and not to get too far off budget here, but when we address agenda item C, there is a conference coming up at the end of July that it's a virtual conference that we are all invited to. And there are some tremendous breakout sessions at that conference, or that appear to be tremendous breakout sessions. And marketing is one of those, or solicitation of students, or however you might like to address that topic, is one of those breakout sessions, and or one that I certainly intend to pop in on myself. So we'll talk more about that conference though under the third agenda item. Sarah, do we need to approve this budget tonight?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, you can open it up for motion.
Any other questions? Any other discussion on the budget?
No.
I would entertain a motion to approve the budget as it's presented.
I motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button.
All those in favor of the budget as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the budget is approved. Agenda item C, goals and planning for 2021. We'll start out with this conference that we were just referencing. There's a link in your agenda to that conference website. And partway down the page there is a breakout on the conference offering. And of particular interest, there's a whole segment of breakout sessions for governing boards. Everywhere from financial reporting and transparency to running appropriate and efficient meetings to marketing for virtual school students and so forth. But this conference is available. It is free. July 28 and 29. It starts out I think at like 9 o'clock in the morning and goes until about 2 in the afternoon. It's being run just like a live meeting would be run. There are a whole bunch of presentations that are being offered simultaneously, so it's just difficult for any one person to be taking on more than one at each time slot, although I am very, very tempted to try to take on more than one. So I have registered. I know Sarah's registered, and if any of you have any time whatsoever over the 28th and 29th to partake, would love to have you do so.
As you guys looked at the agenda, are there certain things, like I couldn't do both days, but I could probably do a little bit? Is there like certain things that you don't have enough people to get to that you want someone to listen to?
Well, I think that as far as I'm concerned, if we have a board member taking in one of the breakout sessions and another board member that's willing to take on one of the other breakout sessions, I'm happy to fill in on, just open time slots so that we can then come back and report back to the full board as to, what we felt were best practices and, the high points that were offered in each one of these breakout sessions. I'm pretty sure that Sarah wishes there were 3 of her when these things are going on as well, because the administration of the virtual charter schools there's a whole slew of breakouts on that one as well. So perhaps if we can get an hour or two from each one of us, We could even help Sarah out with ones that she would like to have somebody in attendance, at, and, we'll cover as much of the offering as we possibly can.
Chances are they'll also record the sessions, so.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we'll have access to them later, so.
They're going to record.
I'm guessing they will. That's usually how these conferences work.
Yeah, typically those that are online, once you register, it's beautiful. You have access to everything from that point forward. which is
Very nice.
So,
Very
I
nice.
can do some checking on that. And then another thought I had, Stan, was maybe you and I could look through the sessions and see which ones we think might be really important to get people to. And then we could sort of make a little, like a spreadsheet or something, and people can try to fill in gaps.
Where can you give us your hour?
Exactly.
So Sarah and I will work on that. What we feel as though are the most important sessions for us to be involved in. Put a spreadsheet together and get that out with the times that those are being offered. A couple of the sessions are being offered twice, or I believe that's what I read earlier today, that they were being offered multiple times. So, but we'll get that out here in the next few days, a week, depending on how busy your schedule is there.
Early next week. Get that out.
Other thoughts, other comments on goals and planning just in general? I know at our work session that we sort of leaned on this whole marketing and student development initiative to, as probably our number one goal, just getting the word out in the appropriate mediums to make sure that people know that the Hudson Virtual Charter School exists. We're open for business and looking for students. So how we best do that, perhaps Tracy can give us some hints when she addresses our group the next time we meet. I'm certainly not a marketing expert, so.
So and Stan, if I could jump in there, and I am also not a marketing expert. The one thing that I would encourage you all to think about is the concept of internal marketing and external marketing, which is really interesting for this board, because where the primary responsibility of the board lays with the open enrolled in students, so that would be external, but we've all talked about the fact that our priority is making sure that we offer the best possible experience for our resident students as well, and there's that crossover. So even though there's not really a fiduciary responsibility of this board related to internal students, if you would like to put some of your effort toward marketing the virtual school in general, that would definitely fall under your purview. So just something to think about as that conversation comes forward. And I think with Tracy's presentation, she'll be able to offer some, or probably not a presentation as much as available to answer questions and offer some insight into what she does to market. And marketing is such an interesting concept when you're a nonprofit, because what are we really trying? We're not trying to sell something, right? But we do have a product, and the product is a great educational experience.
Well, and I think that it's very important. Sarah and I were talking the other day about getting some statements from some of our existing virtual students on their experiences, just from their perspective. Not trying to put words into their mouth at all, but how did it make their life easier, or what course perhaps were they able to take in a virtual environment that was not being offered in the brick and mortar as well. So I just think that those kinds of statements would be very, very powerful to the other students that we're trying to get on board, be they internal or external. So
do we have
Oh, go ahead.
go The old, little bit of hesitation.
My screen as much, so I'm not catching the cues.
Yeah, I'll be loud and aggressive from now on. No, I had a couple thoughts. One, related to internal, my first thought was, I wonder how many teachers are fully aware of what the options are, and just all of the staff. It's a fairly large staff for a fairly large high school, because they're probably sort of the first line of communication for a lot of existing students and potentially new students. And I'm sure you guys have already thought about that, and promoted the sort of existence and just general awareness. And then the other thought I had was, oh shoot, I should have written it down. Well, well, let's come back to it if I can remember what I was going to say.
One thing that sparked an idea for me today was I was watching a promotional video from Wisconsin Virtual School, and it was short, but it was informative. It was, what can you expect? What does your day look like? And for all of our students, that's so different. Sometimes for me, it's hard to conceptualize like a generic video that would hit all these different needs, because I see great diversity. However, I think if we could capitalize on at least the pieces that do connect everyone's experience together and do like a little video, I would love to have that as a resource. So I don't know if that would need to be very expensive, but I think that'd be cool. And then that might be a way to even incorporate some of the student testimonials or those types of things. So, and I really love video projects, so I'd be willing to help with that.
Okay, I thought of what I was going to say. First of all, +1 to that, and the idea of testimonials I like too. It was Stan's thought about testimonials got me wondering about, do we have sort of our own self-evaluation cycle to establish how we're doing and to quickly bubble up problems and issues and highlight successes, just our own apparatus for evaluating how are we doing?
I believe that there's some sessions that touch on that too. So I think those would be good ones to highlight, and I've thought about that. I know there's like a report card that we're going to need to put together. There are probably just so many things that I don't even know yet that we will need to do. That's good though to have. And I know there are some pieces in our contract that address it a little bit, but not like a checklist or anything. The Wisconsin Resource Center for Charter Schools, who are putting on this conference, will be a really tremendous resource for us as well.
Regina, do you have any experience in your past training, both live and virtual training history, with marketing those trainings and trying to increase the participation in viewing the training exercises that you've created?
She's muted.
You're muted, Regina.
I'm in the Lean Six Sigma organization at 3M, and we send out when we have new classes that are starting, or we've added new classes, we start by, we have leaders within that organization. We start by communicating out to them and asking them to communicate out to their teams. So I think what Peter said about the teachers, and are they fully aware of what the offerings are? Because I think that's a great place to start for the students to know what's actually available, or the different options that are available, especially now.
I would actually say that counselors might be even more important than the teachers.
Yes.
As parents are looking, I know when we had to go virtual, that was my first call was our counselor, because I didn't even know it existed, right? So I think that the counselor might be the first line that the parent is going to go to, especially right now. And who knows what will happen in the next month as plans are decided, but it feels like this is a very timely thing to get out there so people have understand what all the options are.
I would agree that it's very timely right now to try to get it out, especially, do we have an idea of like a start date for charter school? Was it aligned with the regular school?
Yep, we can currently take alternative open enrollment applications. So the standard enrollment window passed, but we can still take alternative open enrollment through the third Friday count.
No, they actually passed there. That's that deadline when we're supposed to start officially accepting. So there's sort of a gray window in between. But yeah, there are some specific timelines. I'm not muted. I am, but you can still hear me. I'm trying to figure this all out. It's hard to look at that with the little mute sign and then realize people can still hear me. So with the alternative open enrollment, that can continue for a good portion of the year. There are limits set at each grade level or for each specific program that dictate the number of students we can accept. Right now, there's room at all grade levels, but that's something that we closely monitor.
So it would be interesting to think about how do we get even the message out to the broader community. So you think about all the local schools are trying to decide what they're going to do, and you've got parents on all areas of the spectrum, right? But a lot of folks, I don't think anyone would know this exists yet. So how do you even think about open enrollment? Because you might have kids from the surrounding area that parents are looking for an option that they would want to open enroll. And if we have room, how do we get that out? I don't know what the answer is other than figure out how do we put an ad in the paper or something, but which no one reads anyways, but a different way.
And which paper would it be? Because we'd be looking at other communities.
We don't have one anymore, right?
The good news is, because we were on top of everything and Sarah did such a great job getting everything organized, we made the timeline to be listed in DPI's, essentially their directory of charter schools. So we have 2 applications already from surrounding areas, actually one relatively far away. So it's sort of working, but you're right. How do you get that word out so other people know? We know that word of mouth is the best sort of advertising for something like this, but you've got to get a few in there before you can depend on any word of mouth to help out.
Our website too, because when I talk with families, internal families and external families, they're looking at our website. And so that's a piece I would like our team to take a look at. And I think right now it's sort of mixed between the HVLA and the HBCS. And I think we could do some thinking around the organization of that information and make sure that families know kind of which is which and how does this apply to me and what are my options.
It is confusing when you look at it. I would agree with that.
Sorry.
For Regina's benefit, as well as just a refresher for all the rest of us, can you just sort of do the highlights on the HBLA versus the HBCS?
So last year, the option for our students was Hudson Virtual Learning Academy. We opened up the entire Wisconsin Virtual School, which is the Wisconsin State Supplemental Online Program. We opened up their entire course catalog to our students, which was new. In the past, our high school students could only take courses that were not offered in our high school brick and mortar. So things like French or macroeconomics, or a couple of game design, things like that. Now a student could potentially take a fully online schedule, including core courses, AP courses, the works. We had about 300 students participating in the Hudson Virtual Learning Academy last year. So that'd be anywhere from 1 online course to 8. Now this year we could only accept resident students. We had no capability to have virtual students from outside of Hudson School District. Now this year with the Hudson Virtual Charter School, we're able to offer that same opportunity to students who don't live within our boundaries. So again, the student, if they live close enough, they could potentially take just a few online courses and then be in our brick and mortar for a blended schedule, which is what the vast majority of our own students take advantage of, or they could do fully online from home if they wanted to go that route. So, how's that?
Do you anticipate, with all of the uncertainty, that we're going to have more students going fully online?
Did you guys hear that?
Mhm.
You gotta speak up, Stan.
What's that?
You gotta speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry. My question was, does Sarah anticipate that with all of the uncertainty that we have in our world today, that we are going to find many more students that are looking to do their entire curriculum online, as opposed to, a partial brick and mortar and partial online approach?
You might have a better read on that than I do. So far, I have not had like a flooded inbox or voicemails coming out of my ears. That hasn't hit me yet. I don't know if it will, but it hasn't. So
It's a great question. I smile because it's the question we wrestle with quite a bit at the district level. We know that, as we sent out the survey to all community members or all families, we had about 75% of the people say that with reasonable mitigation strategies, they feel comfortable sending their children. We had about 4% that said they are not comfortable regardless of circumstances. And then a pretty big chunk, about 20% or so, that said that they need more information. So at the board meeting, the Hudson School District board meeting on Monday, they'll be discussing plans that will hopefully give some more information, provide some clarity to families so they can make the right decision. It's very interesting because there's going to be two dynamics at play. Last spring, when we had to shut down, we immediately went into emergency mode. I think our teachers did an absolutely amazing job. It was very, very high quality for as last minute as it was. But everyone recognized it as far from ideal. It was not the situation that anyone would, if we had time to plan, that's not what we would have ended up with. But it was a stopgap measure to say we just have to keep something going. So there could be families there that were saying, I was sort of thinking of this virtual thing, but after that experience in the spring, no, I'm going to send them. Then you've got the other side of that equation of families saying, you know what, I'm not too comfortable sending my children to school right now in the midst of the pandemic. So I'm going to be looking for a virtual option. So it could go both ways. The thing that I am most proud of in terms of how we rolled out the Virtual Learning Academy is the work that Sarah's done with working with individual families to come up with the perfect program for them, whether that is completely online or blended, but sitting down and saying what really is the right match. And I view that as the sort of a significant cornerstone of what we've had to offer. Now we've stolen that idea and we'll be incorporating that in whatever we roll out in the fall. Meaning if there's a family that says, I'm just not comfortable sending my student, we'll sit down with them, go through a similar process to try to find the right solution, because we could have a family member, the example that I use often, we could have a family member who says, I'm just not comfortable. We sit down and talk to them and find out what it really is the cafeteria. Okay, let's work around that and see what we can do to mitigate the risks that are associated with the cafeteria, and then maybe they'd be more comfortable. Working through that process to, again, come up with the best possible solution. So that's a long answer for I have no idea.
Well, I don't know, so any of us have any idea, and quite honestly, if we were to see some sort of second wave of this virus come across the country or bloom in any one of our communities, that's going to change an awful lot of opinions. And I know that a lot of people struggled with the whole distance learning process. And with that being said, are we anticipating that rather than go into that distance learning as we remember it from last spring, would a virtual course selection be a better option for a lot of these families or a lot of these individuals?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think to tie it back to the goal process, that could be something that we look at. One of the things we know is that Wisconsin Virtual School is a tremendous partner. I mean, the way they're willing to support and help is phenomenal. And there is no way we will ever be able to offer all of the courses that they offer. So Wisconsin Virtual School will be a long-term partner, both with the virtual charter school and with just the virtual learning academy. That goes without saying. But there are classes that we are currently having our students that are on-site students. They're taking a Wisconsin virtual version of a course we offer on site. That's something we can get after, where we can create those classes internally. Sarah's been working at the high school on a few of those course development projects. And what that will do is allow us to offer, without great risk, more virtual offerings to find the perfect blend for students, regardless of what their needs are. So we'll continue to work on that. And that also, I think, is part of the marketing conversation too, that we need to make sure everyone understands what we're trying to accomplish. We work with a few departments that there's sometimes a hesitancy to embrace virtual learning from a teacher in the on-site brick and mortar building, fearing that if we have too many virtual students, we're going to lose jobs because we won't have kids to teach here. And what part of our conversation is it's the opposite. We want to train our teachers to be able to teach virtually so we can meet a broader spectrum of student needs without having to go outside of our system.
Sarah, do you have even a guess as to what the Wisconsin Virtual School catalog of courses, how many courses there were in that?
Oh, easily pushing 200.
Versus what's our current high school catalog, course catalog look like?
So it's a good question. It's going to be a larger number than it actually is. It's going to be a number probably in the hundreds, but a lot of those these are freshman classes, sophomore classes, so it's not as big of a number. You know, when you're actually breaking it down and saying, let's look at my sophomore schedule, there aren't going to be that many elective options. There's way more than we ever could offer through Wisconsin.
And they add more every year too.
Right.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I keep thinking about, and as I read different articles, different colleges, universities, schools around the country talking about reopening in the fall, you know, they're still looking at being able to do, you know, some social distancing inside of the classrooms, the lecture halls. Their largest or most well-attended courses in many instances are only going to be virtual, so that they can keep the numbers of students that want these courses and keep the students happy that way. But there's just no way that they have the facilities to be able to. I mean, you can't teach a course in a football stadium. It's you know, kind of a thing. So I you know, we're in some interesting times right now. Remaining fluid is a necessity, but as we look at our marketing and the things that we want to put out, I think the testimonials are a terrific idea. I think safety and the safety of the students, and if they feel safer in their own homes than they do in a brick and mortar, that's all fine and good.
So I think if you go back to one of your earlier, if you go back. So if you go back to one of your earlier comments where you're talking about the parents or whatever the experience was with distant learning, which by the way, I do think it was very, very well done for the amount of time that you guys had to plan. But what I will also say is having kids on both sides of that, WBS is not distant learning, right? It is a true classroom experience that you do all the same work. So as I had half of my household in WVS and the other half in the distance learning, well, they both had hours of work during the day. One was definitely having to work harder than the other, although he was not happy about it. So I think that that's something though really important for parents who are looking for maybe a different, if they're nervous about that, to get that out somehow I like your idea of a video, Sarah, because I think that could really show it, even of screenshots of what the user interface is and what the assignments look like and that interaction that you get, because it is very, very well done. And I think that it's different than an emergency distant learning, which you guys have learned tons from. And I'm sure if we have to do again, we'll look very different as well. But I think that might be a good thing to have as a part of that. Like because I know as I went into it, I had no idea what that meant. Like, what is virtual school, right? I didn't have any idea what that meant. So as parents are looking for alternatives for this year, that I think is very timely to figure out if we could get that out. Because I have a feeling one of the reasons why we're not inundated with calls is no one's making a decision until the school district makes a decision, right?
Right.
There's no decision to make until we know what's going to happen, and we don't. So.
Any further comments on goals and planning?
So do we want to start to make, and Sarah, you might have this already, but I'm almost wondering, do we want to start to create a document with different themes of goals for the year so that we actually create something tangible so that when we get into a review cycle, we have something to review ourselves on?
Definitely. Do not have one started. Yes, that would be good. After tonight, I think we should put something together, and then the next meeting we could kind of review it, add to it, kind of see. We don't have so many people that we can necessarily break up a lot into like smaller groups, but we could even do like a couple groups that focus in on various goals that they feel more passionate about.
So I can see there's themes around the marketing, obviously, like we've talked about. There's themes around what do you want to go after from course development. I think that would be really interesting to get into, like what areas make sense to start with. And I know you've already done some of that, but are there other areas we want to try to get into? I'm sure we could go on, but those are two that come to mind right away.
Yeah. Other big ideas that people have right now? So you've got course development, marketing.
You should think about including parent testimonials as well for the students that were already in those types of courses.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Stan and I talked a little bit about that too.
Is there something around how do we even go about soliciting feedback? No, I'm sure you hear a lot individually from parents, Sarah, but do we do some type of broader survey to parents who had that experience and what they think?
Survey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as other things come up, just shout them out, I would say, think of something.
Well, no, I agree. And I think that at the virtual conference that we've got coming up here at the end of the month, there are going to be some good ideas that will come out of that, because there's one of those breakout sessions is exactly what we're talking about here under umbrella of marketing. But it's, how do we get the word out effectively, and not only to all of our internal families, but especially to those external. How do we mushroom that out so that it is a strong message out in our neighboring districts? Or I don't know how far we could go with that. It's
Well, I'll share a really quick story about how far a district can go marketing their virtual school. So I was at a conference once, and it was in Milwaukee, and it was right when we started talking about launching a virtual learning academy. So before we had started any of this, so I decided to do some quick market research, and I type in Hudson School District virtual learning options. And it took me to the site that talked about, I won't name a name because it's about a different district and a completely different part of the state. and it listed all of our schools, a lot of information, and how to sign up for our virtual learning option that was actually offered by another district. So they had a program that would aggregate data from every single school district in the state. So whenever you searched school district name, virtual learning school, it would take you to that district. So not a suggestion, but at least the outer limit of what one could do if one wanted to.
Sounds like a good suggestion.
Right.
You can pay for those Google hits.
Right.
Yeah, we definitely need more espionage.
There's never enough.
And if we're gonna go after the social media giants, I don't think our budget is anywhere near enough either. So.
It might be good just to do some research though of what are other, charter schools doing, and maybe some of that conference will address it, but no.
Yeah,
Some families last year, you could tell they were shopping around, and it was like, do you have this? Do you have this? What are you going to give me for technology? And like, they had their list of what they were looking for and trying to find the right person to fit it. And, for me, I just say, here's what we are and here's what we have to offer. And so, yeah, it's interesting market out there.
I wonder, I was thinking of how I would, if I had a kid, part of me is thinking about kids who are not fitting in where they are, or maybe now because you're concerned about the, pandemic related stuff, you might be worried that your school district will be in person. And then, so there's just another class of people who are worried and don't know what to do. And they'll probably talk to the guidance counselors or assistant principal or whoever, but I'm imagining what else they'll do and wondering if, they're on Facebook bugging their friends about it. They're looking for groups to join. And I wonder if we sort of like walk through those steps a little bit, we'll come up with, oh, maybe we should actually like buy a Facebook ad that's very targeted towards, it might even be like a homeschooling angle, because those are the kind of people who know outside the box options and the groups. I'm not really sure where that leads, but if I sort of imagine me or my wife trying to do it, I could see us doing a lot of strange Facebook traversal or internet searching that, we might want to spend a little budget on, very targeted marketing in that exploratory world.
Mhm.
I'm a bubble person. So another bubble that I added from the conversation was continuous improvement, because we've touched on that with ourselves as the governing board, and do we have our checklist? How do we know we're doing our job and doing it well? And then with the feedback and then student experience, and always wanting to improve that for everyone. So there's another bubble for us.
I agree.
The only other thing I'll offer to the group is this sort of brainstorming, open-ended work on goals and planning is challenging in a mixed environment like this, when you're partially online and partially on site. So I think this is a great topic for a later work session when everyone can be in the same room and get some chart paper out and start looking at ideas and synthesizing those ideas and coming up with some goals.
Well, that, or we figure out how to use the, I don't know if Zoom has it, but there are online, I've used many of them, online Post-it apps and things that we can do.
There's online whiteboards where everyone can collaborate, type at the same time, put all your ideas out there, and someone can go in and organize, put them in buckets or bubbles, and
right.
Yeah.
Or bubbles. Now that we know bubbles.
We can make bubbles.
We've had to get creative. We're going to be home a long time.
Yeah.
My company is, so.
Yeah, Padlet is one that I know works very well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. I think moving on, Agenda item D is to discuss our regular meeting calendar for the 2021 school year. We have, I guess, historically been meeting on Thursdays. Regina, I don't know if Thursdays, I mean, we typically start our meetings at 5:30 in the afternoon. So if
That
Thursday
works for me.
5:30 still work for everyone, if a later time would work better, an earlier time would work better. I'm just afraid if we have a meeting at any time earlier than 5:30, Dave will be tied up on another meeting, so. Oh, I didn't mean to say that on another. I'm sorry.
Works for me.
Yeah.
And frequency of meetings that we meet as a board, and do we want to tuck a work session in between our actual board meetings? Seems like a good approach to me, but I'm open to any sort of suggestions.
How often do we have board meetings set for right now?
So the statutory minimum is 4. So I think we'd want to, I think today what we need to do is establish a minimum of 4 sort of probably quarterly meetings and get those sort of written in stone. And then I think as needed, we can, as long as we provide notice, we can have many, many more meetings. So those could be work sessions, those can be regular meetings, but we need quarterly meetings on books today.
And by bylaw, we have to have our annual meeting in July, so.
What does our year go? Is it the school year or is it a calendar year?
July 1.
Yep, yeah, the school year, so yeah, July 1 to June 30.
Okay.
So you covered 1 of your 4 already today, so that's good. So if you would want, one way you can consider is if you schedule those 4, and then the opposite month, do a work session, and then you could schedule more beyond that if you want. Now, one of the things we can do, because we are hybrid right now, where we have people here, the door is open, the public is welcome, we don't necessarily have to have the YouTube live stream up. Now, what we're doing with the regular board meetings is for most of them, not all, the idea would be during the regular board meeting, you guarantee you have that live stream up to allow that easy access. But for a work session where you're not going to be taking action and discussing and you want it to be a little bit more casual, you could do that, still a blended virtual option, but you wouldn't necessarily need that live stream. And that's a decision you can make as a board, whatever you're more comfortable with is fine.
Sort of a point of order, I guess. If we were to have a board meeting and we were not to have a quorum for that meeting, it's still counted as a meeting, our mandatory 4 meetings per year?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I don't know. I know what you wouldn't be able to take action, obviously,
Right.
during that meeting. I don't know if that would count. I mean, Sarah and I looked at the statute quite a bit, and I don't think it states in there one way or the other, but there may have been some ruling in some court case at some point that I'm not aware of. And Andrea is also out west in Montana or Wyoming. She might be in Idaho right now, so I won't be able to get an answer.
No, I don't know as though it's necessary to get an answer. You know, if we have a meeting once a quarter and it became necessary to have another meeting to meet our obligation, if that was the case, we've got some spare time and built into that quarterly schedule to be able to fit another meeting in to meet our statutory obligations, if that's what we're coming down to.
I did take a look at the district calendar just to see where the end of quarters fall. So we have November 6th is the end of first quarter. January 18th is the end of the second quarter. April 2nd, end of third quarter, and June 3rd is the last day of school. So if we want to try to kind of follow those quarters at all, we can. Otherwise, it doesn't necessarily have to. But.
I'm fine with that.
I think that's fine to start. I mean, we know we're going to meet more than 4 times anyways. So to start with that as those on the books, my guess is we'll have several more.
Yeah, that sounds good to me too.
So say that again, Sarah, we would be meeting in
Do you need,
January, April, July, and October?
Those were just the quarter end dates. So November 6th is the end of first quarter. So my thought would be our first regular meeting would be sometime before November 6th. And then our second regular meeting would be somewhere between November 6th and January 18th. And then another one by April 2nd, and then another one by June 3rd. Or if we didn't need one there, if we didn't think we did, we could set the next annual meeting, although that would fall in the next year. So we would need one. So then another one by June 3rd, or around the end of the school year at some point, because we'll need to prepare a report and things like that.
Well, if we're required to have an annual meeting in July, we may want to just push things so that we go, July, October, January, April.
yeah, that's what I was going to say, is good, do that in between months so that you don't end up doubling up right on top of each other, June and July.
Do we want to try to, say that we're going to go first week of the month, second week of the month, and just hold that consistent? With January and July in there, I would think that we would want to not go in the first week of the month, but because at some point you're just battling holidays.
I would do like the 3rd week. Being selfish, get my January calendar.
I guess I don't feel that we have to necessarily pick the 3rd or the 2nd. Like if I'm looking at our October, that's parent teacher conference month. And so it's going to be really tough to get a Thursday meeting in that month. So maybe probably would need to be like the first Thursday in October, or even like the end of September for that one.
It'll be fine.
Well, you're looking at the calendar, Sarah. How about putting some dates to that? We obviously want to miss the parent conferences.
Yep. So
the previous Thursday in September would be
September 24th would be the last Thursday in September, or October 1st would be the first, obviously, Thursday in October.
And conferences are
the 8th and the 15th, and then also the 13th. But the 2 Thursdays would be the 8th and the 15th. I don't know if anyone has any preference there.
At this point in my life, I'm struggling trying to figure out what's happening next week, so I'm just going to go with the flow on these. I'm blaming the pandemic, but really it's just me.
That's fine in October.
That works.
Well, I don't see any problem with October 1st. What about January?
January, the first Thursday is the 7th. And then the 14th, the 21st, the 28th. I don't see any school functions going on. Classes resume January 4th, so.
April?
April,
First Thursday?
the first Thursday is April 1st. April 2nd is the end of third quarter, so that could work.
Any objections to April 1st if we keep this on a first Thursday kind of a thing?
I'm okay with April, but January, the first 2 weeks of January for me are ridiculously busy because of budgeting. So I would really prefer if we could push it to the third week of January. You would save my sanity that month.
Granted.
So January 21st, any objections to that? I think getting it a little further from the holidays is probably better anyways.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
the 21st?
21st of January.
October 1st, April 1st?
Yep, so we've got, right now we have October 1st, January 21st, and April 7th.
April 2nd is Thursday?
7th.
7th, sorry.
The 7th is a Wednesday.
I'm sorry.
That is a Wednesday, the 8th or the 1st.
What am I doing? April 1st. I think I was writing the 7th down for January and then.
You were playing an early April Fool's joke on yourself.
Yeah.
And then July,
July, I don't think we have to set that yet, but actually July is not even on this calendar.
The 15th would be equivalent to today.
Yep.
But right, but we should probably list today's meeting. So in the motion,
Right.
we'll have the 4 that were this year's.
Right. So July 16th of this year. October 1st, January 21st, April 1st. And then maybe tentatively, we can revisit that
Mhm.
because we have to give like 30 days notice
Right,
for our annual
right.
meeting.
Right.
So maybe at that April meeting next year, we can
mid-July. I mean, just
shoot for mid-July,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that.
Okay. We need a motion on that to establish
Okay, I
those.
think for that one,
That being said, I will entertain a motion for our 2021 meeting calendar to look like January 21st, April 1st, mid-July for our annual meeting, and October 1st for our 4th mandatory meeting.
I don't know how you phrase it. I will propose the motion if Melissa doesn't first.
I'll second your motion. How about
Perfect.
we have to get better at that part.
Yeah, we need hand signals.
As flexible as Gumby, so it's like
We don't have-
the annual meeting is the only one that I think we even need that 30-day notice on. So the rest of them we can sort of do as we need, I guess. But if we're going to post something for the public, it would be nice if we at least tried to hold it. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Our meeting calendar is established. Thank you, folks. Any other discussion for the good of the body?
we should probably touch base on, at one point, we talked about a work session. Nice. We talked about a work session in a couple weeks.
For Tracy, yeah.
For Tracy. Is
Right.
that, so like Regina, you probably didn't know that date because you're just joining us, but it was July 30th, I believe. Does that
Yeah.
sound right?
It's the 30th is what we talked about last.
Okay.
2 weeks.
The conference is the 28th and 29th.
Yes.
That would actually be a good timing for that, to come right
Do
on
a
the heels
recap.
of the conference. A work session for July 30th, does that work for most?
Might be in the car again, but.
It was fun to watch you drive last time.
Probably won't be at ASC. Yeah, did you see how like dark it was in the garage and then it was strange.
We have a work session scheduled for July 30th at 5 p.m. 5:30 p.m. Excuse me. Would one of you check to see if this facility would be open, this room would be open for us for that day? This meeting room at the administrative center is very well equipped and very spacious. It would hold all of us quite easily, so and still be able to adequately distance from one another. So, just a thought, we will continue with the hybrid for anybody that does want to attend the meeting from their home, but it might be easier for Tracy too to see our smiling faces as she's giving us the scoop. So,
Melissa, I have a question for you. So you were the one who suggested, and very, very smart, that we all use our computers regardless of our location. And I just want to know from people at home, how was this experience for you tonight? Did you hear everything? Did you feel part of things? Let us know how that went for you.
I thought it was fine. You can hear really well. I mean, you can hear, it's just like you're all on your own computers. So the only difference is you're looking to each other versus just staring at the computer. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, me too. I haven't been struggling to hear anybody, which was my biggest concern.
Yeah. It does look weird that you're all on mute, but we can still hear you. But
Right.
it worked.
It's hard to get used to.
It's nice not to have to worry about muting it, unmuting it.
You just have to worry about saying something when you think you're muted.
We're all going to have to get used to that again. It's not good. Mhm.
We really appreciate all of your time and commitment and energy. You guys are really a great group to work with, and super excited for this upcoming school year.
and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So move. Second.
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.